Hey, this is Jim McDonald. Welcome to episode 249 of the PowerCast, the last original episode for 2017. I produced for you, for this show, about 100 hours of audio and about 100 hours of video this year in 2017. That's a lot. So I want to thank all of you who hung in there and watched or listened to every episode. Definitely appreciate that. We actually talked about the guests that we had on this year in the course of this episode, so sort of our year-end roundup, which ones had the biggest impact on us, and which ones we enjoyed talking to, and which ones that we're going to be watching very closely for what they'll do in the future. So anyway, check out this episode. We also talked a little bit about the football season and movies. Particularly, I haven't seen Star Wars yet. I need a break so I can go do that. Anyway, like and share this. We'll be back on Wednesday with some encore content. Please remember that the Compex deal is still on through the 31st. Use the code PowerCast30. You get 30% off of the lowest price on all but the lowest price model and free shipping, but not free one-day shipping. The other thing too is at the end of this episode, you will see me reading the list of all the guests that we had on this year. So if you feel like doing that, then watch. I just wanted to be sure that we thanked everybody somewhere in the course of this episode. So we'll see you on Wednesday, or I'll see you on Wednesday. Support for this episode of the PowerCast comes from Precision Nutrition, home of the world's top nutrition coaches. Head over to get.pn/PowerCast for a free nutrition course, especially for PowerCast listeners, focusing on the role of carbs. That's get.pn/PowerCast. Reebok.com, home of the Legacy Lifting Shoe, the official shoe of the PowerCast at Reebok.com. 8Man Strong apparel for people who lift heavy weights at 8manstrong.com. Compex Muscle Stim products at CompexUSA.com. Use the code PowerCast for an additional 28% off all but the lowest price model. HowMuchYouBench.net. Use the code PowerCast for 15% off slingshots and free shipping on orders over $100. And Bodybuilding.com, the world's largest fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com has free plans for every level. Visit bodybuilding.com today to become your best self. Mark Bell's PowerCast is also sponsored by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps weightlifters get special life insurance rates. They're also the official life insurance partner of USA Weightlifting. To see if you qualify, get your free quote today at healthiq.com/PowerCast or mention the promo code PowerCast when you talk to a Health IQ agent.
Recorded live in West Sacramento, California, this is Mark Bell's PowerCast. Standing just to the left of Jim McD, here's your host, Mark Bell.
All right, if you were to have to guess, how many guests do you think we had on this year in 2017?
How many guests we had?
How many individual guests? So some shows had more than one guest.
Yeah.
Some had more than two. At least
so
one.
Just total guests.
Total guests. Not double counting anybody.
Okay. I would say 25.
The answer is 60.
Oh, 60. There we go.
And we did that in 65 episodes this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of episodes.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of fucking talking.
It is a whole lot of talking. Yeah, I didn't count the hours, but it's probably got to be, I don't know, probably really close to 100 hours of content.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that.
That is a lot.
Maybe. Yeah, I should have counted. I didn't actually take the time. I did not 100% know that we were doing this particular episode today, but I figured we could talk about...
It's an impromptu.
Talk about 2017 in review and the kind of some of the things that we did and accomplished this year.
I got a new phone, and it's been tripping me out.
You have an X or an 8 or a whatever? What is it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
I have the X, and it it's not like super responsive. It's like sideways a lot. Like, you know, when you have to keep flipping your phone back and forth.
It doesn't
so I get
switch?
that a lot. And then as soon as I got it, it like wanted me to update it, which that was annoying because then it changed the interface of it like immediately, which I, you know, was just getting used to for half a day. And then somehow magically all these pictures and stuff popped up on here, which I don't fully understand, but I think it's because of the iCloud.
Oh yeah.
And I don't really know. I don't know what the reasoning is behind the iCloud being so confusing. It doesn't really seem like anyone's got a great solve to it. And the people that do have some solutions to it, they're tech savvy people and they know kind of a lot. And they're like, oh, I just put it into my Google Drive or whatever. And it's like, well, who the fuck knows how to do that? And who even wants to take the time to, in my opinion, your phone should be fucking separate from your computer. You shouldn't have to ever hook your phone up to anything. So all that's super annoying, but I don't understand how all this stuff got on here because when I was at the store, I asked the guy not to do it and he didn't do it, but then it still somehow magically appeared. So somebody did something somewhere and Matt linked something up with something.
So in your general settings, you've got under iCloud and it's syncing your photos. That's what's going on. Yeah, I had a
15,000.
I had a conversation when I was dealing with the problems with this computer at the Apple Store, and the guy was like, "You have a whole lot of stuff in your iCloud." I said, "Yeah, I know. How I use iCloud is that in my office I have 3 different computers and they do 3 different things.
Right.
I have a video editing computer, I have this computer which is the audio computer, and then I have another one that if I have to do graphics or any of that kind of stuff, that's separate. And sometimes all 3 computers are going at the same time.
Yeah.
And I have to share things among them a lot of the time as well. And the way that they have iCloud designed across the computers now, it will just pick folders that it's going to sync to iCloud, and then it'll put representations of those folders on every computer that's linked to that account.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to actually take up space when it does that, but it does. And I was like,
Skynet is becoming fully realized, and we're heading towards Judgment Day is what's happening.
I told the guy, it's like, iCloud is a piece of shit. Like, why is it such a piece of shit? And he said, I told him how I use it. He said, it wasn't designed for what you're using it for. It was designed purely as a backup. It's not really intended to be a networking thing, and it's not a business solution. It's like, well, why do they put it on every fucking business computer then?
None of it really makes any sense because the iPhone is so revolutionary that almost anybody can learn some of the basics of the iPhone,
right,
regardless of age.
Yeah, any age.
But then for some reason, the rest of stuff that is with Apple is confusing. It doesn't make any sense. Like, how'd they revolutionize the world with this phone that's touchscreen that a 4-year-old can kind of figure out, or even younger, 2-year-old.
I've seen
or
cats.
A 75-year-old could figure out. Like, that's pretty amazing. That's a wide range of people that they have figuring out some of their products. But then you ask even somebody who's 20 what the cloud is, and they're like, I'm not really sure. I don't really know what that means. And can you go to a website for it? Or like, how do you access it? Where the fuck is it? And why is it even necessary? Do I even need it? Like, I don't even care. I don't even want I don't want all this stuff stored. I don't want to have stuff forever. And I don't want everything I have to be connected to each other. If I get a text message, it pops up on the iPad that's here at the gym.
That's not good.
And it pops up on the phone that's in the gym that was supposed to die like 7 years ago. That phone's really fucking old. So I don't know what's happening.
It's still going.
Everything's possessed. And then I get in my car and I hook my phone up to my car, which is the worst fucking design ever. The CarPlay thing is leading to a lot of accidents, I think.
Because it's fucked up?
It's always fucked up. It plays fucking a song from Lil Wayne every time I get in the car, which is fine. I love Lil Wayne, but Jesus Christ. And the song's like possessed by the devil too, because I try to swipe it away and it will still come back. If I try to play audio from something else, like if somebody left me a message or something, they'll both play simultaneously, so I can't hear
either one.
The message. And I'm like, I'm going to go off the road because I'm fucking with this stupid thing. Jesus Christ on a cross.
I know. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. My phone plays the same song, one song. Now, I should have a bunch of songs on here, and they certainly are taking up space, but they act as though because I have iTunes Match.
Here it is. Here's the song. Every Day. Abortion from Lil Wayne. Thanks, Lil Weezy.
Mine plays...
Cranking, too. It's always super loud.
Oh, mine plays a...
It's like I'm having a concert.
Mine plays a cover of a Toad the Wet Sprocket song over and over. It doesn't ever play anything else. A podcast. But I'll be listening to a podcast as on the earbuds as I'm walking up to the car. I get in the car, turn the car on, and what plays is that fucking song. Instead of handing off like it's supposed to the Bluetooth. And oh my God.
For a while, I had my alarm clock. I don't know what station it was set on in Los Angeles, but it would play that song from The Lion King every goddamn morning. That weeble wop, or whatever the fuck that is.
Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yeah,
and
it would just be blasting.
Oh,
it was
my
like
God.
5:30 a.m. every morning.
Yeah, that's
some radio station played it, and that was like around the time I met Andy, and she was like, "What the fuck is?" I was like, "This wakes me up. I don't know. So I don't know what station it is or why it plays this song at this time in the morning, but this is how I get up."
So the station was playing it.
Yeah. It was a radio station.
Yeah, when I was in high school, the nearest radio station was in Modesto, and at 7:20 every morning they would play Cheap Trick's Surrender. They called it the national anthem, and they played it every morning. And so you were in the parking lot at high school in your car, and you'd be pulling in for 7:30 start time or whatever, and so people would be standing in the parking lot or sitting in their cars with their windows rolled down, and that song
finishing that song
off before they went. Yeah,
I heard something pretty interesting the other day saying that if you want to get into a thought-provoking zone, you want to get into just maybe even just feeling better or whatever vibe or mood you're looking for. A lot of people go to music for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will try to listen to new music, and that can actually be kind of frustrating to your your overall just like psyche, because you're not finding the tune that you're comfortable with.
Right.
And so they say going back to something nostalgic may help. So if somebody's trying to write a book, or somebody's trying to make a cool or clever post, or you're trying to be creative, they say, go back to something from 20 years ago, or go back from something from your childhood. It may spark something. It's going to probably be, I mean, it could go either way, I guess, emotion-wise, but it'd probably be something more soothing, or at least more comfortable to you because you're used to it.
Yeah,
that was kind of interesting.
I would understand that. I don't know the last time I played any new music in my car, anything I haven't heard a million times before, and I'm kind of okay with hearing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. It's weird, right?
It's super weird, yeah.
But even watching a movie, I mean, my wife and I the other day, we were looking for a movie, and we didn't want to take the risk of like investing in a new movie.
Yeah.
So we just watched 8 Mile. We've both seen that like a bunch of times, and we're like, let's just watch this. Jake's never seen it before. He thought it was cool, so we just watched something that we're used to, and we do that all the time. Fugitive. In my house, we have a rule about Fugitive. If you are flipping through the channels and you see Fugitive, you have to leave it on.
You have to stop.
There's a few movies like that. Ace Ventura is another one that's like that. Dumb and Dumber obviously is like that. But there's a couple where I think as a family we've even seen the movie 30 or 40 times.
Oh yeah, but I totally believe it. There's
this time of year too. You got Chevy Chase. You got the Christmas Vacation movie. You got to watch that every time it pops up.
Right. Well, it used to be that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was on network TV every Thanksgiving.
Oh really?
Yeah, every Thanksgiving. And so I watched that sucker to death. I used to know all the words, and then I realized that it was on demand this month. So I watched like the first half of it the other night.
Home Alone's a good one. That one pops up around Christmas time. Rocky, the original Rocky, takes place around Thanksgiving, and that pops up around Thanksgiving time every year. And I've seen that 48 billion times.
A lot of people believe that the best Christmas movie is Die Hard.
Oh yeah, Die Hard's great. Die Hard's amazing. That's a really good. That's a fucking classic for sure.
It's a solid choice. There's a Bill Simmons podcast network has a podcast called the Rewatchables, where they choose movies that you can rewatch a million times and then review them anew. And they have particular categories about like, was this this person's best performance, or did they do anything better than that over time, or what's the most classic scenes, the most dated scenes, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It's it's nostalgic, like you said, and so it feels good to listen to it.
What movie you think you've seen the most?
Apocalypse Now, without a doubt.
That's a great film.
And then probably the original Star Wars.
I think for me, it's probably, I've watched Rocky, just the first Rocky, a lot, just because as I got older, I really enjoyed the character building of that film, and I think that there's just something extraordinary about that movie that's hard to put your finger on. The fact that Rocky is such a loser, he's such a bum. And they do a really good job of depicting that, and there's just a lot of funny life lessons in there, and I always find it really cool when it's one loser to another is trying to give each other advice, and that's what happens in this movie over and over again. Paulie's trying to give Rocky advice. Right. Rocky's trying to give.
Who the fuck is Paulie? Right.
Everyone's spinning their wheels and no one can get anywhere. Everyone's just really struggling, and it's cool, and I even just like the overall message of Rocky, at the end of the film, kind of saying, I just want to prove that I'm not just another bum from the neighborhood. That's my favorite part of any film, just because I think it's a cool goal for a film, even. Yeah. This guy just wants to prove more so to himself than anything else that he can just hang. He can hang in there. And that's just a cool life lesson. So I really like that movie a lot. I've seen it a lot. But I think Rocky IV, I've seen more than anything because of when it came out, and I was lifting at the time, and I was watching or playing football and stuff, and it's like a music video. It's a montage of training, right? And I just remember watching that, endless amounts of time back when they had VHS. You just watch it so many times the VHS no longer worked anymore.
It gets stretched out and it wouldn't play anymore. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it gets all tangled up and fucked up.
Yeah, I think that the other one that I've maybe seen the most is probably Star Trek II, just because I saw it before it was finished. We saw it in a preview.
Oh, that's cool.
I was living in LA at the time, and we were walking down the street, and they said,
"Oh,
hey,
that's great.
You want to go see a science fiction movie at Paramount on this day?"
My brother and I had that happen with Austin Powers.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah.
And we were like, "What the fuck did we just see?" Because Austin Powers is unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's fucking amazing. For some of the younger people that listen to this podcast that may have not ever seen it. Yeah.
Jump on that shit.
Oh my God, you have to. And it was just so different. The humor's so weird and different. We were like, what the fuck did we just... We weren't even sure how much we really liked it, but we knew it was funny, but we were like, what did we just see? That was weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a huge Mike Myers fan. That was a great film. I saw Star Wars last night with my son. I liked it a lot. It was cool.
You liked it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm getting very mixed reviews. I have friends who have seen it who loved it and want to go see it more. I have a friend who, on the younger side, so somebody who's not had the same experience with Star Wars that I have. I mean, I saw it, I think whatever year it came out, 78, the first one came out, I think, and I saw that it was between 8th grade and my freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing that movie for a long time. And so I have a particular feeling about it. That's why I didn't like, episodes 1 through 3. Right. I was okay with 7. I didn't like Rogue One. But anyway, this kid is like...
Yeah, maybe you're going to be more picky about it because you've seen the other ones and you have a certain feel for those other ones, right?
And he just thinks it's trash. He just hated it. So we'll see. Looking on Rotten Tomatoes, critics love it. Viewers, not so much.
I have learned over the years, I used to I used to let like one thing that would happen in a film just spoil the rest of it for me. And I'd be
Right.
like, I fucking hate this piece of shit. But that was a bad character flaw of my brother who would always say that you ruined his whole fucking week, which is the funniest goddamn quote ever.
Ruined my whole fucking week.
Or he would say you ruined my whole month, which is even better. Like it could be something simple, like somebody gets his coffee wrong or something, and flip the fuck out over it. But I've learned that you're going to watch a movie, like you're trying to have fun. That's the whole point. That's the $15 or however much you pay for your movie ticket is an investment towards you saying, I feel like being entertained for the next few hours, and I feel like just being mindless. And so I've learned to kind of relax on that, because there were certain parts of Star Wars that didn't work for me, and there was other parts that worked great. Some of the more dramatic scenes, I think, worked really well, all the way to the point where the audience, all clapped at the same time and kind of got what they were trying to get the message across. But there was a couple parts that didn't work. I'm not like a crazy Star Wars nut, so like I'm not going to remember something that they said in another that maybe conflicts with something they said in this one, or I'm not going to get too uptight about any of that. But I just thought a couple of times, like I guess you're trying, like the Jedis and everything, you're trying to hold all this stuff up on like a pedestal, and you're kind of formulating in your head that it has to be this way,
right?
And can't anybody fuck with it? Like, don't go messing shit up. Like Disney, just leave this shit intact. This is really good, but it worked overall for me. I liked it. I thought it was cool.
Well, I mean, looking back at those characters, we're getting deep into Star Wars here on the PowerCast. Looking back at those characters from episode 4 through 6. They were all kind of pieces of shit in some way or another. I mean, Luke was the hero, but he was no hero a lot of the time, and his judgment was not good a lot of the time.
He didn't know he was a hero. He's kind of cowardly, but wanted to try stuff.
Yeah, and
He's scared.
Yeah, and like the decision to try to save his father is the strangest thing ever, because it's not somebody he even knew, not somebody he grew up with. What's the, like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why would he bother to do that? He did a lot of things that didn't make sense based on emotional shit. And everybody talks about that movie, or actually those 3 movies, as being, so much the hero's journey, straight out of Joseph Campbell, all that shit. And it's like, I don't know, really? I think you're putting too much on it. And Han Solo mostly did things for money and a little bit for the possibility of Nookie. I mean, that's... Princess Leia was kind of a bitch a lot of the time.
She was. She
did good stuff, but she was still kind of a bitch the whole time. It's like none of these characters is particularly flawless. So if they behave in a way that we don't understand in later movies, it could be that we just never understood them very well to begin with. We put too much on them.
Well, and I think for when the movie came out, and just the movie's revolutionary, and so I think people put it, up on a pedestal. And Darth Vader's character with the music coming on, and you kind of think he's flawless, but you go back and watch it, and you realize he's pretty weak. You actually realize as you go through all the Star Wars, any of the leaders or the guys that are on the dark side are all like not great. They're not,
if they were any more competent.
Yeah. It's kind of like watching Spaceballs, like where Lord Helmet, he's not very competent at all.
The movie would be over if anybody was more competent. Right.
But what makes the movie great is the fact that it's very simple. Star Wars is good versus evil, and that's what it always is.
Yeah.
And when they stick to that, that's where the movie seems to be the strongest. The dark side, it seems like the dark side is cool, and there's a lot of temptation, and there's just more leeway with what you can do and what you can't do, and the good side. Seems like it's too tight and too rigid, but that's where all the good shit's going to happen if you can hang in there for long enough and actually be a good person.
If anybody is as big of a film nerd as I am, and as big a Star Wars nerd as I am, I suggest that you search for a video called "How Star Wars Was Saved in the Edit." It is awesome. It shows you how the original assemblage of the movie and how awful it was, and then what they did in editing to pull it together. Scenes that they added just by doing voiceover or graphics or effects or whatever, making it work as well as it did, because it was apparently just the biggest piece of shit ever. Yeah. When it was originally made. Yeah,
I mean, didn't they have to like there was a different Darth Vader and stuff, like there was a different voice, and they have to change a lot of that?
I think they always intended to use a different voice. They just didn't tell the actor, who was a big bodybuilder, that they were not going to use his voice. They just had him voice all the lines so that they would have they'd have that in place. But no, there was just the first movie had a whole lot of subplots about Luke ahead of time, that like before you ever understood what the story was going to be of the film, you were distracted by whatever shit was going on with him first. It was just bad storytelling, bad editing. Mark Bell's PowerCast is sponsored by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps weightlifters get special life insurance rates. They're also the official life insurance partner of USA Weightlifting. To see if you qualify, go to healthiq.com/PowerCast today. So what makes Health IQ so unique? They use science and data to secure lower rates on life insurance for weightlifters and strength trainers. Historically, you get penalized by life insurance companies for BMI, family history, and other attributes, but you don't get rewarded when you live a health-conscious lifestyle. 56% of Health IQ customers save between 4 and 33% on their life insurance, which is crazy. That's actually a lot.
I wish you could get insurance on like your pecs and stuff. You know, like I blew out my pec like 3 times. So, can we do that? Will they have stuff like that?
What I'd like to have had when I was competing was lift insurance. That's just one letter off.
What about deadlift insurance?
Deadlift insurance. I could have used some of that. You really need that because, going into a deadlift in a meet, you're beat, right? You're tired. You need all of the pre-workout stimulants you can possibly get.
And it kills you.
Absolutely. So, to see if you qualify, get your free quote today at healthiq.com/PowerCast, or mention the promo code PowerCast when you talk to a Health IQ agent.
Anyway, you said we had 60 guests.
We had 60 guests. I was just going to try to go through the months a little bit here and look at who we had. And just think about maybe things that we had takeaways from those particular guests. Our first guest of the season of the year was Stan, and others in January. Charles Poliquin was somebody that you and I had looked up to for a long time, and we had a just mind-expanding conversation with him.
Before you go down that rabbit hole too much, I just want to let people know that we have planned to get the most recent World's Strongest Man champion, Eddie Hall. I'm working on him behind the scenes on trying to get him on the podcast. It'll just be a phone call, and we will work on getting him here to Super Training Gym at some point. But I just thought I should mention that because I know a lot of you guys have asked for that, and that's something that we're working towards. We also are working. It's been hard with his schedule, but Tim Ferriss is somebody else we wanted to have on the show for a long time. And he used to live in this area, but he no longer lives here anymore. He lives in Texas, so he would probably also be a phone call as well rather than having him live in the studio. But we've had a lot of questions about those two in particular over the years, and so I figured I'd mention it.
Yep. So what
Amanda
Bucci, Josh Bryant. Bucci has
a lot of people
exploded.
have started their own podcast after being on our podcast.
She has.
Amanda was definitely one of them. I think her podcast was kind of just starting, and some of her business stuff was just starting when we had her on the podcast. So it'd be cool to have her on again and get a follow up from her. She's somebody in the industry that I really admire. She has really, really excellent and tactful post, I feel, and I think I think she's authentic. The information that she's given out, I think, is really well done. And then there's if you just look around at her website, her Instagram, there's just a lot of thought behind it. She's not just flooding stuff out there just to flood stuff out there.
Right.
And then even her podcast and stuff, there's a lot of information about the guest that's on the podcast and stuff. So she's just somebody who's executing really well, somebody who's, if you want to look for somebody to admire on Instagram and to try to navigate social media, she's definitely a person to follow.
I think that a lot of men and women both are
she's doing a great job.
Very involved. I
think she got some mentoring from Lewis Howes too. I think that was
I think that's right. Yeah.
Instrumental in some of her development, and she's been around great people too. She's been around Bart and Barbell Brigade, and all that obviously helps a ton too.
Actually, someone who was not a guest this year, but I want to shout out is Meg Gallagher, Meg Squats.
Oh yeah, Meg Squats.
She won the bodybuilding.com
that was pretty cool.
Spokesperson.
I thought that was halfway cool, and then I thought it was halfway kind of cheap because I'm like, well, she's kind of a professional fitness person, so how does
she's kind of past that maybe? But
yeah. And I don't mean cheap from her perspective. I know that she probably worked really hard to get it. I just mean that in my opinion, take that for whatever the fuck you think that's worth. I don't think people like Meg should be even eligible for that. I think that it should be more of a quote unquote working man's.
You think
award.
It should be more unknowns?
It should be people that and it would be hard to figure out, but it should be people that have more of a regular job, that are not fitness industry people.
Yeah, she's definitely.
It's easier. It's easier for you to be in shape when you're in the fitness industry.
When your job is your body.
Yeah,
kinda?
I would just flat out say it that way. It's easier,
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's my.
No, yeah,
that's just the way I feel about it. Yeah,
we still love you, Meg. And
yeah.
I mean,
it's not against her at all. I know she works tremendously hard, and she's a great person for them to choose because she can be an excellent spokesmodel. So it's not anything about that necessarily, but I just think that. My understanding of some of those things, what Bill Phillips used to do when he'd give away the car and stuff like that.
Right.
It's like I didn't want to see Mike O'Hearn win the car. You know what I mean? I wanted to see somebody that was from fucking Illinois and just busted their ass working for John Deere or some shit like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I want to see like your average guy who didn't have time for the gym figure out a way to change his life forever by going 3 days a week and making some nutritional changes. Lose 40 pounds, gain 30 pounds on their bench, shit like that,
Right, yeah. People who very obviously put in the work to make a noticeable, measurable change.
Right.
Whereas, like, we know that over the last few years, she's been working her ass off to make a living in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
And she does, and apparently does quite well. For all I know, so I mean they're getting more than their money's worth out of it. And the question,
I taught her how to do tricep kickbacks, so I'm taking full credit.
There you go
on everything.
There you go. I think that they're getting their money's worth, but I question whether she is.
Yeah,
because I don't know what the contract restrictions look like in terms of other stuff. I mean, they say that's one of the reasons why you don't want to win American Idol.
Well, it might be one of those things where she wins and then she never signs anything with them.
Yep, it's a good possibility. I mean,
it's like, all I have. But bodybuilding.com has been they've always been very supportive, and I think that as long as you're not an online retailer of any and all fitness products like they are, then they probably don't really care what you do.
You won't probably see her doing anything with Tiger Fitness.
Right.
Yeah.
Rob and Dana Lynn Bailey. I saw them pop up on there. You can't hide that.
They were in February. Rob and Dana Lynn Bailey. That was a really fun show, and they just looking at stuff, they resonate more with our YouTube-based audience than they do with our audio-based audience, but they're just super positive people, and
what a bunch
they're
of
fun.
Fucking weirdos. They lived in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
And now they moved to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. The dead middle of nowhere, like the Great Divide middle of nowhere.
They're like, this is not the middle of nowhere enough.
We need to live further away from everything.
What do they call it? Buffangoo? That's where they live. They literally live next to nothing, but just fucking awesome people. And again, if you're looking to look up to people in the industry, I think those are two excellent people to look up to. Rob Bailey, I mean, who doesn't admire that guy? He's fucking cranking out music. He's stylish. He's handsome. He's jacked. He's in good shape.
He's vegan.
And very opinionated. A very opinionated person, but also a reasonable person.
Yeah, and he doesn't really he doesn't hate on anybody expressing his opinions.
Right.
And if anybody doesn't agree with him, that's fine.
He and Dana, they just love animals, and so I to me that's a reasonable thing.
Yeah,
I don't want to partake in, which is a huge thing to try to figure out too, because who the fuck knows what your shoes are made out of, or your jacket, or your couch, or your whatever, right? Like it's a huge thing to partake in. But anyway, I just think they're fucking excellent people.
Yep. We had Steve Gentili and T. Papula. That was a funny one. That was two massive monsters.
Yeah, those two are hilarious together.
They really are funny.
They couldn't look any different.
No, they couldn't.
One is darker than a struck match, and the other one is fucking brighter than my dad legs.
He's super white. Steve is is really, really white. I saw a picture of him on Instagram the other day. I was like, oh man.
Fucking so strong, and unfortunately, he ended up getting an injury to his lower back recently, and he was really prepared for some huge numbers. So hopefully he'll come back. Yeah,
there have been a couple people in the powerlifting world that have had some just super fucked up kind of injuries lately. That are kind of heartbreaking. People might actually just not have a career in lifting anymore because their injuries are so.
It's been a long road back for Dan Green.
Yeah.
I know he's been trying to make a comeback for quite some time, and I've seen, a couple of videos will pop up here and there where he does something extraordinary, and then, sure enough, he's banged up again. And, a lot of it's just trying to build up a tolerance for the type of training that you're doing. And there's avoiding injury is it's not an easy thing to figure out.
No.
We, from our geared powerlifting days, we learned that basically when when it's going good, what's the opposite of that? That it's about to turn bad, and a lot of times, we would curb each other away from that, and that was a good reason for having a team. It was a good reason to have all of us around each other all the time. It was like, no, you know what, dude? Like you've been pushing it really hard for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Probably makes sense to do less, do something different. Or with the powerlifting gear, it gives you a lot of options. Say, hey, how about you just do something without your gear on today? And that immediately makes you lift a few 100 pounds less, and maybe it immediately makes you think of a slightly different exercise.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm going to do this raw. Okay, well, instead of doing a heavy box squat like you're going to do, maybe you do a rack pull. And now you just shifted from doing a full range of motion movement with an overload to doing a partial range of movement with probably something a little bit more modest, since maybe haven't even done the exercise in a while.
Right. In a classic West Side, you probably haven't done that exercise that way in a long time. 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks or more. It's
tough to avoid injuries. So you see some of these people that are on a huge roll, and you're like, I think we're all always just kind of waiting. Like you just know it's just a matter of time before somebody has a catastrophic blowout, and it's rare for someone to be smart enough to steer away from it. It feels too good to lift those big weights.
It sure does.
We're not smart enough to.
It feels good to make things hurt when you're lifting.
Larry Wheels is somebody that we've had on the podcast, and I've seen him hit a 620 or 630 pound touch and go bench press in training, and he's looking amazing. He's shredded up, and it looks like
really
he might do like a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
And I mean that's a wise move, is just to shift gears completely. Just because you are a quote unquote power lifter does not mean that you have to always be in full powerlifting mode all the time.
Right, and he's young.
Yeah, he's like 15.
Yeah, exactly. Our biggest travel ever to do a show, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary V. That one was great. It was very reassuring to have somebody who we look up to in the media world, in the social media world, in the online retailing world, who actually had compliments for us. That was nice.
Yeah, he enjoyed being on the podcast, and I think we hit him with some questions that maybe he didn't always get from other people. And when you have somebody like that too, it's like it's a hard mix of letting the person talk and get their point across with okay, they steered a little far away, let's rein them back in and just interrupt. You have to like actually interrupt people, which is weird, but you have to. Yeah,
you do have to. I think that maybe sort of a takeaway from that one was he's got really good instincts, and things have panned out really well a lot of the time, but not 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And really you just have to keep trying things until you hit on what works or what feels right.
Right.
And they need to go that direction. I don't think that he has any hard and fast solutions for anybody. He can tell you what he's done, and he's got an agency that works with people toward, learning their business well enough to know what will work for them.
Right.
But it's hard to make some really universal pronouncements about everything. I don't really think that that's what he's trying to do, other than just keep going.
I think for him, he it seems like he is just a huge fan of trying to make things optimal. I mean, we all are, right? But I think that his company and the way that they do things is they're looking at all aspects of the business and looking at all aspects of what you're doing. And on top of it, he's just a genius. Something he said the other day was like, it was really simple. He talked about an investment towards maybe having like a Facebook ad or Instagram ad, and he equated it to a certain amount of money, and he equated it to time and money. And he basically said, you can do a lot of these things for free. He's like, for example, hashtag powerlifting. You just hashtag powerlifting and then make a couple comments, bounce around on a couple people's Instagram. Maybe you suggest them towards somebody else's program. Maybe you have some advice for them, or maybe you simply just go over there and say, wow, that was spectacular. Great job. And if you're in the industry, somebody will say, oh my God, look at that 8-man strong. They just fucking gave me a pat on the back for my squat. That's fucking cool. Or Mark Bell or whoever it might be. And so that was his advice, was like, do that every morning. Do it, bounce around on 9 different spots and do that 3 times a week. And that's, X amount of times, and that will equal this amount of return. He's like, people will keep seeing it. People will keep following you. People will keep talking about you, and it'll keep your name in everybody else's head. And it's like, it's fucking great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's simple. It doesn't cost anything. Just takes you some time.
And then if you look at, I'm going to jump ahead to Jordan, whom we met on that trip, Jordan Syatt, and then had on the show because he flew out to be on the show. God bless him. Is that Gary challenged him to do 3 Instagram posts a day and don't have them be shitty ones, you know? And because some people, you can post 3 times a day and have shitty things. You can post your food 3 times a day. You can post, a bathroom selfie every 5 minutes.
Right.
You can do all that stuff, and it doesn't really add value. But he put a lot of effort into fun infographic stuff that you could actually get a lot out of.
Right.
And he has definitely reaped the rewards. I don't know. I think he's maybe got over 300,000 or something on Instagram.
Yeah,
now.
I think he actually. Yeah, he might.
And he was in the 5 digits when we met him, and he wasn't close to 100,000. I don't think.
No, he's his shit has been flying. It's been unbelievable. I think something that's really smart on his end is that he got into that infographic type stuff with that's the check mark and the X type thing, and then full explanations below, and sometimes having a little bit of like clickbait going on to get people interested and stuff like that. But he's smart enough to realize like. It's not good to just be stuck on any one thing. So even though that's effective and that's been helping him, he's smart enough to realize, hey, you know what? Maybe I should look into some other things. And he and I have been talking for a long time now, on and off, about YouTube and the value of YouTube. And, you know, YouTube's tough. You shoot a YouTube video and no one fucking cares.
Yeah.
And it takes and then you do one and you're like, man, I nailed that. I can't wait to post this. And you post it and no one still gives a fuck. And then you build up more followers and you post another one and you think that one, and you just don't know what's going to hit sometimes.
Yeah.
But YouTube is something that you can't give up on, because YouTube is actually a look at who you really are. And the more that you do it, the more that people get insight into who you are. And to me, I like YouTube a lot more than Instagram. It's a much deeper look into a person. I had Cynthia Liu on my YouTube just a few days ago. She's an awesome powerlifter, very, very strong. And I had her on my YouTube channel, and I asked her some questions. You know, hey, how's powerlifting helped you? So on and so forth. Typical answers that you get, not just from females, but from males as well. When they focused in on performance, they ended up noticing a big difference with their appearance, and they started to feel better about themselves, because it wasn't necessarily about how she looked; it was about how she could perform. And so then she became attached to that. As she became more attached to that, that's when other things follow suit. Maybe you do start to eat more protein. Maybe you do start to eat less junk because you want to perform better. Maybe you get better sleep. Maybe you cut back on drinking. Maybe you do X, Y, and Z, and the result is you look better. And so she talked about building confidence, feeling sexier through being stronger, and just feeling more confident in herself and in her body. And the comments, I mean, on my YouTube channel, I get flamed a lot, which is fun. But most of the comments were positive. And they were all like, wow, you know, I really feel a connection to her. She's really cool. Of course, some of the guys are like, marry me. There was some of those in there. But most of the women felt, you know, really drawn to her, and they felt a connection to her. And then they were also saying how, like one girl in particular is like, I'm a huge fan. I'm on her Instagram every day. I check it out all the time, but I never heard her talk.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that's really interesting. It's like, if you never heard someone talk, why the fuck are you even following them anyway?
That's a good question.
I was trying to think about it for myself. I'm like, who do I follow that I've never heard talk? And there's not really anybody that I follow that I haven't heard them speak before. But everybody's different. I mean, they're just inspired by the photos and inspired by God knows what. Pictures of girls' butts. I don't know.
That's a good question, I guess. And that's, you know, that's the thing with the podcast too, is that
longer format.
Longer format, you get to know people better.
Yeah.
You know, even the two of us.
Yep.
People get to know us better just when we're just talking like this. We'll go back to March. Okay, Brian Alsrew and Alan Thrall, they were fun. Brian is really just
we have
one
Alan
of the most
on more than once.
We have had Alan on twice. We had him on by himself as well. Brian is just a straight ahead guy. There's just like, there's no artifice there. He's just exactly who he is. And
strongman competitor, full of great information. Him and Alan Thrall. I think it's great that they talk about strongman, because it's a spot that you don't hear people talk about much.
Yeah, especially at, you know, not the top level. We have Brian on.
Right.
And
Brian doesn't have time to, like, you know, he doesn't have the time commitment. He's 4-time world's strongest man champion, and he's got to really hone in on that.
Right, and if you want to find out more about strongman from Brian, you need to like join his site and get, because that's what makes his time worthwhile.
Yes.
To add to your knowledge.
That's
you know,
right.
It's just one of those things that people.
I think it's shawstrength.com.
Shawstrength.com. Yes, I think that's true. Or Strongman-Academy.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, but you can get to that from shawstrength.com.
You'll figure it out.
Jen Wiederstrom, one of the TV people we had on this year. Jen was a lot of fun. Super positive person.
Jen's amazing. She's just out of her goddamn mind. She's impossible to interview because she's very very talkative.
Yeah,
so
she is
hard to. She's gonna kill me. It's hard to figure out how to get the most out of her.
Speaking of people that it was interesting to talk to, the Masthetics guys, Simon and Garrett, they were that was one of the more interesting shows ever. Like, they know how to take things and make them super uncomfortable and have it still
Talk
work.
about taking shit too far.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was over the line a couple times on that one.
They opened up our minds and our buttholes.
Yeah. It's like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna say?
Oh yeah, the
long mint.
We're getting instructions over here to say long mint.
Long mint.
Jessica
yes.
Smith over here is a little too excited about the long mint.
Uh,
Jessica over there, by the way, is like she's pumping me with some information, and this one's amazing. I don't know if you saw this, Jim, but there's, and I don't know to what extent this is, but the wide receiver for the Jets. Have you heard about this? Wide receiver for the New York Jets. He's now she's dying laughing. Suspended for PEDs, and he denies knowingly using a banned substance and thinks maybe a ghost is involved.
Oh my God!
Why are you laughing, Jim?
A
That's not
ghost
nice.
is involved. Oh my God!
Could be paranormal activity.
I could tell my ghost story sometime on the show, but I'm not gonna. I don't think that there were any performance-enhancing drugs involved in my
Like,
ghost
listen,
story.
how does your ghost know how to stack this stuff so accurately?
This is the ghost of your trainer.
Yeah, the ghost gave you testosterone and Arimidex, and it gave you anti-estrogens for all the testosterone you're on, and it's like, man, this ghost really had it well thought out.
Just
what
all
your
set
cycle
up.
was going to be.
All
That's amazing.
set up.
Only the goddamn Jets. By the way, the game of the year was fucking played yesterday. I don't know when this is going to air.
Friday.
But that was one of the best football games I've seen pretty much ever. The Steelers and the Patriots.
Oh, I heard that was really
motherfucking
good. Yeah.
Tom Brady, that son of a bitch. Every single time, he always escapes somehow with something miraculous happening or some sort of bullshit happening to the other team.
Right.
And it kind of paints the Patriots in a bad light, but it's because they're winners. They're always gonna figure out a way to win.
There was a penalty that people think should have been called that wasn't called.
What happened was it was on. I was just sitting there half asleep watching this game. I'm like, I haven't seen much football this year. I'm like, I fucking suck. I got to stop being a pussy. I got to commit to watching some games. So Andy went to go see Hamilton again. She went to L.A. with my niece Piper and my daughter Quinn. It was a birthday present to Piper because she loves Hamilton. So anyway, that's what they did, and they're down there having a lot of fun. And so it was a day for me and Jake to pal around. Well, he didn't want to hang out with me because he's a teenager, and so he was hanging with his friends. Jim, you know what that's like.
Yep.
You already went through all that.
Yep.
So I'm like, this is great. I got like 2 hours to myself. This never happens. This is amazing. So I beat off, of course. I mean, I start watching football, and I'm watching the Patriots and Steelers go at it, and they're just beating the shit out of each other. It was really, really good game, really tight game.
Right.
The Patriots score a touchdown at one point, and then they miss the extra point. And the game's going back and forth, and the Steelers score. There's it's kind of looking like the Patriots are going to lose, as it always does. Tom Brady gets the ball. They got timeouts, and of course he leads them down the field, and they score like no problem. Like Tom Brady's just dropping back, and he's like, "Oh, there's Gronkowski." Boom! They pick up 15 yards. He keeps throwing it to Gronk. No one can stop Gronkowski. He's seemingly like 7 feet tall, like 500 pounds. No one can stop the guy at all. And they're just connecting on all these great throws and stuff. The Patriots run the ball. They score a touchdown, and then they even get the 2-point conversion to make up for the fuck up that they had earlier with the missed extra point. And it's just like, oh, well, shit. They did it again. There's only like 40, 50 seconds left, but Ben Roethlisberger's no slouch. He knows how to come back, too, and they had a timeout or two also. They don't even march down the field. They just run a slant pattern. This guy just takes off for like 60 yards, gets tackled at like maybe the 10 or so. Steelers throw a slant over the middle. And it was weird because like the game all of a sudden turned into a video game out of nowhere, where all of a sudden it was so easy for everyone to score. I don't know how that happened at the end of the game, but that's what happened. And It's just like, oh, touchdown. And then so they keep reviewing the play over and over again, and the announcers are missing the whole time that the reason they're reviewing the play is not because they thought the guy was down by contact at the 1 yard line. It's because the guy kind of dropped the ball. Oh. And so the new rule in the NFL, which is only like a year or two old, I think, is that you have to really show that you held on to the ball all the way through, like especially in the end zone. So it used to be anytime the ball crosses the plane of the goal line in any way, as long as you had possession of it, it was always a touchdown. And actually, that's the end of the play. They blow the whistle and it's a score. But the new rule, and the Patriots always seem to be like on the better side of these weird rules. The new rule is that you have to hold the ball all the way through, even if you roll over or whatever it is. You have to still hold it, because they've had a lot of plays where guys will dive with the ball and they will get it over the goal line, but then someone will knock it out of their hands, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a completed effort, I guess you'd say, And so that's what happened with this guy. This guy catches the ball. He goes to stick the ball over the goal line, but he kind of like fumbles it on his own hands, and then the back of the ball hits the ground, and then he kind of reshuffles it and holds it. Oh. And so they review the play, and they don't get the touchdown. The Steelers try to regroup. They try to run another play. That play chews up a lot of clock. There's like 10 seconds left. Roethlisberger's the only one that seems like he knows that there's a play going on. And the one Steeler guy like runs in the end zone half-heartedly, and then Roethlisberger just tries to fire it at him a million miles an hour. Ball gets tipped in the air, and the fucking Patriots
win again.
Win again, and they ride off into the sunset with another victory. It's just. My favorite thing about that all the time is always the post-game interview that they do with Belichick, because he's just so stoic. He's just like staring at the camera, and he just like looks mad, and they ask him questions. They're like, what'd you think of the call at the end of the game? And he's like, ask the refs. They're like, why'd you guys go for it on 4th and 1? He's like, I thought we can get a first down.
Win or lose, it's the same interview, pretty much. Yeah.
He's just crushing them every time.
That's great.
That was awesome. Anyway, we'll have Belichick and Tom Brady on the podcast. We'll ask him about that play next week.
On that previous page, we had Lane Norton, who is always an interesting guest. And
what a prick.
He can't see a hornet's nest anywhere that he doesn't want to put a stick in. So that's always been true, and it probably will always be true.
Yeah, Lane is awesome. He's full of fucking great information. Really is. He is a wealth of knowledge. And I think, when I've interviewed him, when we talk to him on the podcast and stuff, as it does with a lot of people, where it feels like there's a lot of space between us, we realize there's a lot more in common that we have rather than differences. But the one thing, and I don't think it's really even a difference of Lane Norton's versus mine, but my like crusade that I'm on is I want to really try to help people, and I think that the way to try to help people, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but I feel in some way that this whole mess that we got into with obesity, it's 100% the person's fault that's fat, but it's also not their fault. And so it's weird, because they're at fault because at some point they kind of put their hands up and they're like, I don't really know what's going on. Are eggs good? Are they bad?
Yeah.
I don't fucking know. I just know what tastes good, and I just want to enjoy food and enjoy life, and I'm sick and tired of all this shit. And so people will make themselves diabetic. They'll get so heavy that they have trouble walking, and I mean the list of things that goes on is crazy. But I think trying to teach people to eat less, I don't think really helps that much. We've been talking about that forever, and I think that a lot of people already know this. My dad certainly knows it. My mom certainly knows it. And they're people that are sick, that are unhealthy due to accumulation of body fat for many, many years. And I think that they know, and I think a lot of people like them already at least know half the story of what to do or they know that they should be exercising. They may have tried some exercise, haven't found anything that fits or anything that they can have any sort of consistency towards. And I don't know what the statistics would show, but just in my estimation of what I've heard over the years from talking to so many different people, and keep in mind my numbers can be skewed because we know so many people in the fitness industry. Yeah. I don't really know what percentage of the population hasn't lost weight. I would imagine that it's fairly low. I'd imagine that there's, 10 or 20% of the population of men have never lost 20 pounds or more. So people, as Stan Efferding has pointed out, people have been successful at losing weight. But again, I think that teaching people to eat less or teaching people that it's just in calories, I think is just as big of a mistake as teaching people that it's just about carbs.
Right.
It's not about either. It's about you have an addiction towards all these very convenient foods that are around all the time that make it dangerous for you in a way because you have a lot of consistency towards eating shitty food, which is causing a number of other bad habits that are going on. And in general, your health is being compromised on a daily basis because of it. Your food is messing up your sleep. Your sleep is messing up the way that you handle your food. Your digestion is like all these things have happened, and some of it's your fault and some of it's not. There's just so much food in abundance around us everywhere. And what I would like to try to share with people is it doesn't have to be that complicated. You do need to exercise. It's not going to be easy. I think that's important to share with people. It's not going to be easy. So I think sometimes with some of the messages I see from Lane, where he said something the other day about, don't make such a big deal about insulin, and basically something to the effect of your management of insulin is never going to outweigh your management of calories. And I do agree with that. But again, going back to Star Wars, only Sith speak in absolutes. And I don't think it's a wise move for anybody. That's going to be, I'm not going to tell you that carbs are the answer and that you can't lose weight by eating carbs, because there's no definitive thing that's like that, in my opinion.
I think Lane gets caught up in what's true and provable versus what works.
Right.
And I will fall on the side of what works all day, every day. I'm not averse to the truth either. Well,
yeah. I mean, and you're a perfect example of it, because you didn't go to like a podcast class.
No, I did not.
You just started messing around with it, and you're like, I think I can figure a lot of this out. I already know cameras really well. I know a little bit about audio, and I'm going to start to mesh all this together, and I'm going to figure out what works.
Yeah, and the truth about podcasting is that there are no absolutes about it at all. There are some things, there are some studies that say this and studies that say that. Industry experts they're pretty much newly minted. Anybody that you could call an expert came from the radio world. Radio is different. It's going to be different. It's always
podcasts aren't that old.
Podcasts are not that old. So you have to make your own way. You have to be willing to make your own way. And for some people, making their own way is taking a cookie cutter thing and running it for long enough for them to figure it out. And whether or not it's absolutely scientifically provable doesn't really matter.
I just think also too, when it comes to the calories thing, and we've talked about this a lot. Each person is going to handle those calories differently, and if you're trying to base stuff off of willpower, off of being able to eat less food, I think that we're going to lose. I think we're going to lose that battle. So I think that the effort needs to be put somewhere else. The effort needs to be to try to coach and teach people to get away from some of these foods that are so savory. I even think that diet sodas and stuff like that, I think, should be out of the picture. I think some of these keto products and stuff like that, if they can help you stay on the diet, that's kind of one thing. But to me, all of it is a cheat towards what you should actually be doing, because again, if we're talking about your mental capacity to be able to hold true with what it is that you're actually trying to do, I think that all that stuff skews it, as we've talked about other things on this podcast with sexual harassment. Like when the temptation is there, something bad's going to happen. You put pizza and donuts in a powerlifting gym, and what's going to happen?
People are going to eat them.
People are going to have fucking donuts and pizza all over their face, you know, right? That's what happens. And so I think that trying to figure out how do we pull back, how do we pull out of some of these situations where there's so much temptation around us, I think is the answer. Not an easy thing to figure out.
Nope.
Either way, though.
Not easy at all.
And Lane's our boy, I should point out.
Yeah,
like,
and
I'm a fan. He's a friend of ours.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of people lose sight of the fact that you can be friends with somebody and you can agree with a lot of what they say, but you don't have to agree with everything that they say, and you're still friends.
Oh, I'm excited too to interview him for the movie that my brother and I are working on. I think he'll have a lot of things to say that will spark great conversation. Because if everyone's just like, "Oh yeah, that's the way you do it," then what the hell kind of movie is that?
Going back to our list here, like we actually had a run that was Kyle Kingsbury, Jason Kalima, Stone Cold, Matt Vincent, and Kelly Starrett, and CT Fletcher.
I think you should post that. That's a fucking lineup.
All in a run there. The Kelly and Matt episode, which is 202, is the biggest PowerCast of all time. For whatever reason, it just exploded. CT, God bless him,
shooting the shit about a lot of stuff on that one. With Starrett and Matt. That's episode 202. If you haven't listened to it, you need to go back and check it out. I think over the holidays, maybe we'll try to make you guys aware of some of these older podcasts that went really well, just so that you guys aren't missing out on anything. But it was awesome because I think it became so conversational. Right. And Starrett is a tough one to interview sometimes too, because he'll answer your questions with more questions a lot of times, and he really wants you to figure it out for yourself. Right. Right. And I think that's intriguing, though, to a listener, because they're like, yeah, maybe I should figure some of this out for myself. Right. And then Matt is always just Matt, and he's fun. And then on top of that, he's a two-time world champion in Highland Games, and he's somebody who's been injured and frustrated a lot with trying to recover from these injuries, and also trying to just look like he lifts. He's been lifting forever. He wanted to lose weight. He wanted to be in better shape, and he was like, fuck, man, I'm a lot fatter than I thought. He's done a great job losing weight, but he's also somebody who I remember watching years ago, watching a video that he had sped up on Instagram where he was doing some of his stretches and some of these things, and I was just like, man, okay, now I know. I understand why he's two-time world champion. I would never want to do any of that shit. You know, he's doing so much work before and after his training session. I'm like, this guy really deserves it. He deserves to be a champion. And I think that's what makes him authentic, and I think that's something that's helping his business, and it's helping everything he's doing. He's started his own podcast as well. Yeah, and I think he's doing pretty well. He's just a good dude. He's good. He's a good hang. Yeah. He's a really good hang. He's a great person to hang out with, and he's a people person. He gets around a lot of people. You know, every person that we've interacted with on the podcast, he goes out of his way to figure out a way to interact with them too, because I think he's like, well, if Mark and Jim like him, if he's good for super training, he's probably good for us. Probably good for me. And then he goes and he does that with his business too. Even like a lot of the people that we've helped and we've sponsored and stuff, we share a lot of information together. So it's cool. Yeah, absolutely. Others that stand out to me on this particular list, Jacob Ross. I just love that guy. Episode 206. Yeah, don't sleep on that guy. That guy, Jacob Ross, is awesome. He's a really good coach. He works with some really high level people. Worked with and currently works with a lot of professional athletes. But Jacob is again just a dude that's authentic. Yeah. The guy is very personable. Yeah. Someone who's very kind. He's just a very kind and loving person. Yeah. Great attribute. And he kind of reminds me of Jordan Syatt in a way.
because he's really on the grind for his future business opportunities, but he's doing it in such a genuine way that it's not so obvious yet how it's going to pay off, but it will.
And the time that we're in right now, we're in a weird time.
We're in a very weird time.
I mean, we're in a strange ass time where literally anybody with any sort of knowledge can start to, like, quote unquote whore themselves out for money that they can make today versus playing the longer game. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing from somebody like a Jacob Ross and somebody like Jordan Syatt is, they could post up something about an ebook, or they could, and I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with any of that. I'm just saying I really admire the guys that are hungry to put in the work and to make it happen maybe a little bit more authentically, rather than trying to force something, and rather than trying to make $100 today, they're thinking about $10,000 in the future.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Gunnar Peterson and Ben Bruno was a very interesting experience. Gunnar had the craziest gym ever. I didn't even know such a place existed, and I didn't know that somebody who would own such a place would basically be a really humble, down-to-earth guy.
Gunnar Peterson is amazing.
Like, he has no reason to be all that down-to-earth, and yet he is.
To try to describe this guy is impossible, and to try to get information out of him that makes you understand what a study is impossible. But I will tell you this: Sylvester Stallone, Jennifer Lopez, Mike Tyson, Tom Brady. I'm not even doing this list justice. Nope. The people I just named is a very tiny fragment of the people that Gunnar Peterson has worked with. J-Lo, back in the day when she was looking her best, she still looks like a fine piece of ass, I might add, today. But back when she was looking her best, Gunnar is the one that was helping her get in shape, and he was training her at like 3 in the morning. Opening up his gym every morning to work with her.
Jeez.
He helped Stallone get in shape for some of those later Rockies. Mike Tyson later on in his career was just shredded. Like, people kind of forget that, but Tyson was fucking jacked.
Yep.
Looking insane. And Gunnar is just, he's a good person, and he's a very hardworking person. I think he trains every day at about 4 a.m., 5 a.m. He's part of that 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. crew. Mike O'Hearn, our buddy Corey Gregory, part of that 4 a.m. crew. There's some sick motherfuckers out there that are. I wake up pretty early and I start my day early, but there's some sick motherfuckers out there that are lifting at that time, and Gunnar Peterson is one of them. But to make things even crazier, we're in his just an estimated $20 million mansion in Beverly Hills, right? That's where we were, Beverly Hills?
Beverly Hills.
Kind of seems like a dream now, so I had to double check with Jim on that one. And the prince of, like, I think I'm getting this wrong, but I think it was Jordan or Georgia or something like that, was delivered Nobu sliders to us while we were there.
Yeah, I don't know. I never know who exactly it was but those sliders were sick.
Yeah, it was like the prince of some fucking country or something. It was insane. We were like, what the? And Gunnar was like, oh yeah, he delivered it because, like, his guy's not with him today or whatever. And I was like, what the hell? What is going on here? And I'm like, I'm not going to doubt it because everything else here is so unbelievable. So I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah, it was nuts. And, like, you forget that. A thing about LA, and to a certain extent about New York, is that if you're anybody, you're probably going to deal with celebrities some of the time, and he's just dealing with all of them. And it's routine, and so I mean, after a while, it has to get pretty easy to treat them like normal people because they're the people that you see.
Yeah. Well, and then there's Ben Bruno. Ben Bruno's like just chilling, wearing a Beavis and Butthead shirt and a 7-Eleven hat, and you're like, who's this guy? And then you find out that guy trains some of the best people in the world too. He's working with Kate Upton,
Chelsea Handler.
Yep, he's
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, it's just the list of people he works with goes on and on too, and it's just craziness.
With both of them and any of the celebrity trainers that we've had on this year, and we've had certainly more this year than ever, including Jen Wiederstrom and Mike Ryan.
Yeah.
Part of it is that they like what is done for them on their behalf, the way their training is set up, person, how they're encouraged, all that stuff. And then the other part of it is that they like being with the person,
right?
Because that makes it easier. And it tells you a lot about those people's personalities and their ability to put anybody at ease.
Yeah, and I know with Ben, he's just said that like with Justin Timberlake and stuff, he's like I've never asked him for a picture, I was like, he probably really appreciates that. Like if he feels like he wants to take a picture with you and share it somehow, then he'll probably someday do that. But if he doesn't feel like it, it's good to just leave it the way it is. He just, because I think these people, I think people forget Justin Timberlake is not. He's not famous for no reason. Justin Timberlake is incredibly talented, and whatever you think of him as a musician or a talent or whatever you may not be a fan of his style of music or whatever, but you do have to admit the guy is supremely talented, and he figured out a way to get to the top and to be part of a very elite group. And I think a lot of times somebody's working and they're doing all these things, and then someone will say, hey man, can we can you throw the shirt on and take a picture? And it's like, hey, like, do you okay, obviously you don't understand how inappropriate that is.
Right.
And for the celebrity, and that's where you see these celebrities sometimes get in these situations where they're being a dick to the media or being quote unquote being an asshole to somebody. They're not really being an asshole. It's just that they're like, fuck man, I worked really hard to get in this spot, and now you're just trying to come along for the ride. It kind of sucks.
I think that people don't understand. They don't understand that they're trying to treat people in a way that they wouldn't treat an average person.
Yeah.
Like if you treat those people with the same respect that you give everybody else, not more, just the same, they're not going to call it out and they're not going to feel uncomfortable. Yeah. But when you ask things from them that are beyond what you would do for or you would ask for somebody else, then it's super obvious, and people just don't like to be.
I think with Ben too, he was telling me a story about one of the guys that he trains, another celebrity that's really high up. The guy came in wearing some funky shoes, and Ben's like, "What's up with those shoes?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, aren't they cool?" He goes, "No." He's like, "Those are fucking awful." He's like, "You're not wearing those when you're training with me." And the guy was like, "What the fuck?" And Ben was like, "Yeah, we just trained fucking barefoot today." He's like, those are not good for training." And the guy really the guy, it was the first time they met, and the guy was kind of like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about?" He didn't know why but Ben was basically just saying, "Look, man, we're here to train really hard. The shoes you're wearing aren't going to work for our training session today. Take those fucking things off."
A couple more. I was, somebody else who probably has that same quality is George Lockhart. He seems to be able to integrate himself well with the MMA world.
Yeah, working with Conor McGregor and a lot of other great fighters. George is, talk about somebody who has figured out what works. There's a guy who he also takes the science and different things that. Different studies and stuff, and applies some of those things to the stuff he does with some of the UFC athletes, where he's working on their diet and their nutrition and so on. But also just a lot of just practical knowledge. Like, you work with people for a while, and you may think, hey, these guys got to eat vegetables X amount of times a day to be healthier or whatever. He's going to take that information and see if it really is working with these guys that are training 12, 14 hours a day or however long they train.
Matt Winning is always a font of information. Everybody loves him. I'm going to get at the end. I'll get through this post and talk about the people's favorite guests. But Mike Ryan is definitely on that list of people who enjoyed his stories a great deal, even though they are not exactly what we always have on the show. Let's just say.
Yeah, I do think that Mike Ryan comes from a place a little bit maybe where. Maybe not the first several episodes of the podcast, but the podcast after we were going for several months or so, that first year, we definitely had some. It was definitely lewd and a little raw here and there, and we would pop in and out of those poop stories and sex stories and whatever else here and there. And it's not like we steer away from those now. It's just that we've just had more sensitive topics. I see Heath Evans is on that list, Kevin Ogar is on that list, and when you're talking about more sensitive things, Kevin being paralyzed from doing a workout where the weight hit him oddly. There's still room for jokes and humor always.
Yeah, he actually had a lot of humor.
Yeah, because he kind of has to, right?
He has to. Yeah. What choices he got, really?
And then in talking, with other subjects and other people that we've talked to, sometimes the topics are more sensitive. Sometimes we are just not. We always want to be entertaining for sure, but at the same time, we don't want to offend our guests. We want to have good rapport with them and also just put out a good message. And what we're really trying to do, like when we had, just having somebody like JP Carroll on the podcast, when we have, or JP Price, right? As I said,
yeah,
right?
JP Price.
There we go. So having somebody like JP Price on our podcast, what we're really trying to do is say, hey, we got this great platform. We've had the PowerCast for a long time. Now here's our buddy, and we're going to put the spotlight on him.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the guest wants to share really in-depth things that happened to them when they were younger, or something that happened to them in their adult life that changed the course of something that they did. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just want to talk reps and sets, and sometimes they want to just fuck around the entire time the way Mike Ryan did.
He did. It was fun. It was funny. It was while it was going on, I was thinking, boy, this was going to get a reaction, and it did, and it was great, I thought.
Mike's awesome.
We talked some weightlifting with Dave Spitz and Wes Kitts. Wes is, I think, now a record holder again.
We've literally had everybody on this podcast.
We pretty much everybody.
We get a lot of questions about different people, but really the greatest help that you guys can do is just keep telling us who you want to see. Just let us know. Let us know who you want to see, and we'll figure it out. Some people don't always make sense, or some people we have done podcasts before with, and maybe there's reasons why we haven't invited them back.
and there's some people you just can't come to terms on how to make it work.
Right.
There have definitely been a couple of those along the way. No names named, but it's just one of those things.
Yeah, it just happens that way.
We had our buddy Tom File on, and that was one of the most popular podcasts of the year, strangely enough. And for some of the reasons that Mike Ryan was popular, but other reasons as well. It was very honest and very raw, and there was a fair amount of emotion from his side, telling stories about things that had happened to him, things that he had been involved with.
I think it's what people are looking for. People are looking. People are seeking information, and they want to know what someone's message is. But on top of knowing what somebody's message is, you want to feel a part of somebody's message. And sometimes if somebody shares more information with you and they have a message that goes along with that, like, hey, I switched to this diet because I like somebody like Rob Wolf, for example.
Yeah.
Rob Wolf had to basically write the paleo solution. He ended up in that position of becoming a nutrition expert based off of him nearly dying and him having many nutrition problems over the years. And that's like, when you hear from that side, that it's not just because the guy wants to have striated triceps, which that's cool too, but when it comes from more of a personal struggle, you're like, you know what, I can get behind that. And that's why the paleo solution was a New York Times bestseller and put the paleo diet and stuff like that on the map in the first place.
Yeah. Thinking about just from an emotional standpoint, the Kevin Ogar podcast was rough from that perspective. It's probably one of the episodes I was kind of close to breaking up on. And then you talked to Lewis Howes, and I will freely admit that I bawled through the end of that one. I was really glad that I was not there, because I would have lost my shit when he started talking about
his story is tough,
about what had happened to him, and then when he first you know, talked about it and his reactions and then the reactions of the people to him, I just fucking lost it. I completely lost it.
Yeah, you know, some of the what I enjoy about stuff like that is that I feel it could really help other people.
Yeah.
You know, if you're really struggling with something, it's kind of hard to go to like your buddy and be like, "Hey, Jim, you know, like, you know, I'm having a problem with my marriage," or and you would react great to that. You would be a great person to talk to, but it's just, especially as men, we don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't put ourselves in those weird situations. And so what he ended up doing is he went to a you can listen to the episode. It's episode 225. Lewis ended up going to like this course, I guess. It's like intervention type thing where there's multiple people there. I don't know how many people there are. But it's people that you kind of have the understanding that you're probably really never going to see again. And so you have these conversations with them and you share information about them. And it's kind of like almost like a soul searching type of thing. I forget what it's called, but if you listen to the episode,
he does talk about what it was.
The information is in there. But basically, it's people that just feel like they could use some motivation, inspiration in their life, and they have something that is holding them back, whether it's, you know, they were abused as a child, they have some sort of drug addiction, or they're, whatever the situation is, you can go into this environment and you can freely share this information with people that you don't have a previous relationship with.
Yeah.
And you know that there's probably no relationship continuing afterwards. And so with his situation, it was really crazy because on the last day, he said, "Hey, we went through a week of you guys talking about everything you need to talk through. And what we're going to do from this day forward is we are never, ever going to look in the rearview mirror ever again. So everything that we said, you know, now this is a clear slate. We're like almost starting over. We're just going to work on moving forward.
Right.
So if anybody has anything to say, they need to say it now so that we can." And then Lewis Howe, for some reason, was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I should go up and tell people that I was abused when I was 5 or whatever."
Yeah.
And so he got up and he just said it was like out of a movie. He just like let it all out, and he was crying and everybody else was crying, and he doesn't really know, you know, why it took him so long to say all that, but he had the courage to get up there and do it, and his life changed forever for it. And for him, he was saying he was carrying this around on a daily basis. He got into a fight with somebody playing a basketball game.
Yeah, it affected his anger response.
Yeah, and he just like lost it, and then he beat the crap out of the guy. And Lewis, pretty big guy, he's like 6'3", and he was like, "I just beat somebody up because I was playing a pickup game of basketball." He's like, "That's pathetic. What the fuck's wrong with me?" And he was just, you know, he felt lost, and so he went to this this thing and was able to share information with people and changed himself.
Yeah. The hardest part was, to me, was when like he'd left the building and then the guys came out and said, "Hey, you know, shit like this happened to us too." That was really a rough listen, but God bless you for getting through that one. Like I said, I was really glad that I was not there for that.
Yeah,
I would not have managed.
Andy Galpin.
Andy Galpin is one of my favorite guests of all time. I unfortunately someday it's going to be unfortunate for him that I have his phone number, because I'm not going to be able to repress the urge to just text him random shit, because he's just awesome guest, really good person. And if
I love what, you know, it will forever stick in my mind what he said about nutrition. And he said, when somebody asks you a question about nutrition, like if I said, "Hey, Jim, I was thinking about going on this diet, and I was thinking about, you know, for the next 2 months not eating any carbs." He's like, if you just look at somebody, he's like, then all of a sudden they have answers.
Yeah.
Because then I might play it back in my head what I just said, and I might be like, "Oh, well, maybe not eating carbs for 2 months, maybe that's not the smartest thing, and maybe it's not necessary." You know what I mean? Like whatever the topic is. But I thought that was interesting. I think what he means is let's not neglect our own intuition. Like we're fairly smart, and we don't ever give ourselves credit for it. The post I made today talking about, you know, you don't have the guts to do it, and you're not strong enough, you're not good enough, is just simply based in just self-talk I've had with myself of just, go ahead and act on these. Don't take these things lightly. These ideas, these thoughts, these inventions, these intentions, these actions that you want to move towards that you're not currently doing, don't take it lightly. I think a lot of times we take it too lightly and we're like, oh, it's a cool idea, but I don't know how I'm going to make it work. And then you just never get to it because you put your hands up, you're like, it's too hard. But don't do that. Try to figure out a way. How do I make some steps towards that? How do I get some momentum in that direction? Because your thoughts and ideas, as we learned from Gary Vee, they're not always going to be gold.
Right.
But every once in a while, you're going to have a good one. And why not act on it? And it's easy to get caught up in your day-to-day, and it's easy just to get sidetracked. But fuck, man, these are your ideas. These are things that are coming from your brain, that are coming from your heart, and you should take it very personally and follow through with it.
Yep, absolutely. A couple other mentions on this page. Kaler reaffirmed my belief in the future of America because he is a smart young dude and he's got his feet pretty firmly on the ground, especially when he's deadlifting way over his head. Holy shit.
Strong ass kid, man.
Over 900 pounds.
927-pound deadlift. He holds the world record at 198 and at 220. Phenomenal lifter, and also, he's somebody that there's that saying where people talk about hard work beats genetics and all that kind of stuff, and I'm sorry, but it doesn't. Genetics are a real motherfucker.
Take you on a long ride. If you're doing some of the work, the genetics will take you on a long
of
ride.
course. Like there's gonna you still can't be a piece of shit, but genetics can do some really amazing things, and he's an example of it. And obviously, he's working very hard. I would never discredit anything that kid does. He's a very, very hardworking kid, but he was born with some talents and some skills that the rest of us will just never have.
Yep.
He can dunk a basketball. He can hit a golf ball 400 yards. I mean, he's fucking
That's
animal.
insane. Well, he's got those just like that really broad set of shoulders. He's got tremendous shoulder girdle.
It makes me kind of wonder, what kind of power and force somebody like that can generate if they did some MMA, with some kicks and some knees and some punches and stuff.
I think he'd be really dangerous, yeah.
I mean, because I've never seen anybody deadlift that fast and explosive before. He's one of the strongest people to ever walk the face of the earth with that deadlift. So, who knows?
Joel Jameson actually reminded me a lot of Andy Galpin in some ways because just how practical he is.
I would say that I'd put Joel Jameson in the same category as some of our other guests, where maybe the name's not flashy, maybe you haven't heard of it a ton of times before, but it's definitely somebody you should be following, definitely somebody you should be listening to. Can't follow him on Instagram, he doesn't have one, but you can follow him on Facebook. Joel has outstanding. That podcast was fucking epic. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was fucking great.
It was really, really good. He actually even I out of my own pocket bought the first release of the Morpheus.
Oh, cool! When did he release that?
It is in pre-sales right now. I think that there are like 1,000 of them, something like that, according to the story. It's supposed to ship in mid-January or so. So we'll see what that looks like. I know Austin's been using the previous app that he came up with that I can't remember the name of.
Yeah, Joel is he's just insanely knowledgeable, and the information he was pumping out to us was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was really great. Obviously, we had Stan on again. A lot of people responded well to Brooke Entz. It was a particularly popular YouTube version of the podcast. She had a lot of interesting things to say. Perhaps the most interesting was talking about her battle with imposter syndrome, which is something that everybody who has any kind of notoriety could experience. Not everybody does, but you could.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of things are it's all very interesting to deal with, and I think a lot of these like syndromes and things that pop up are all things that are new because the social media is new and all the anxiety associated with it and stuff is different,
One that we did not mention as we were going through, but has been mentioned a great deal. I put up a post about favorite guests of the year and why, and one of them that is very frequently mentioned is your dad, and we had in for a special Father's Day episode. Talk about a very grounded person.
Yeah.
Who doesn't take a whole lot of notice of pretense or celebrity or any of that kind of stuff. He is who he is.
Yeah. No, it was fun having him on too, and he's definitely somebody we need to have on again because he's got a lot of good stories,
So looking at this post as we were kind of wrapping up here a little bit, looking at this post,
wrapping it
up, post that about favorite guests. I'm just gonna tick them off as I go through here. Stan Efferding, Matt and Kelly or Tom File, your dad, Stan Efferding, Dave and Wes, Brookins, Mike Ryan, Stan Efferding and Andy Galpin, Stan Efferding and Matt Wenning, Stan Efferding, Brian Shaw, Joel
People
Jameson.
love that Rhino.
Andy Galpin, Tommy Wishbone and JP Price. Matt Vincent liked himself. Mark's dad, Stan Efferding, Brian Shaw, Joel Jameson, Andy Galpin, Stan Efferding, Josh Bryant, Stan Efferding.
How many times have we had Rhino on the podcast?
He was on 3 episodes this year. Heath Evans, Mark Bell, Andy Galpin, Matt Vincent, Stan Efferding, Gary V, Dr. Andy Galpin, Stan Efferding, Forsaken Warrior. We didn't mention, but we had a good conversation with them.
Yeah, we did.
And they have their own podcast now, too.
Oh, there you go.
Stan Efferding, Matt Wenning, Mesthetics, Wenning, Galpin. If you're sensing a trend here, then...
Sensing some trend.
Burdick liked himself in the same way that Matt Vincent liked himself, but I'm not sure that did we have Burdick on this year? Oh, yeah, we had him on with...
Yeah, with one of Matt Vincent's buddies, right? The guy who played the band. And
that was last year.
Oh, was it last year?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that we had Jesse on this year. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had Burdick on here.
Kalipa, Entz, Heath Evans, Galpin, Efferding, your dad.
Hey now.
You don't always get as many comments, roughly the same number of comments as you do likes on an Instagram post. This is one that is very close in terms of likes and comments. Everybody had everybody who had a response had something to say, had a vote to make. But I think it's pretty clear that our most popular guest this year was Stan.
Yeah, Mr. Rhino. Well, he always has information, and we don't have him on every day, but we have him on several times, and each time he comes back, he has new information, and he's somebody that's gonna somebody's gonna prepare every time he comes on the show.
Right.
He's gonna give us something new, something different. We've heard him talk a lot about the style of training that he did years ago. Where he would say that he mainly only would do kind of one main top set. He's talked about how when he first started powerlifting with us that he had to kind of figure out what was going to be great for him and what wasn't, and he had to cut the fat out of that. And then he's also he shifted gears and started talking more about nutrition. He's told us about these quick, easy crock-pot recipes that he has to help him stay on his diet plan. He shared with us on the most recent podcast about orange juice and how it can help your thyroid, fructose in general, how it can help your thyroid, small amounts throughout the day. He's taught us about the 10-minute walk. 10-minute walk has been something that I've promote all the time too, just to get more people doing it. It's some low-hanging fruit, something easy to do. And he shares information that's practical, and some of the information that you may hear him talk about with some really high level people like Hafthor Bjornsson that he works with, the Mountain. Some of that stuff is not going to be that practical, but that's a professional. That's somebody who's trying to win the world's strongest man competition. So Hafthor Bjornsson might have to eat 9 times a day.
Yeah.
He might have to take 2 naps every day. He might have to walk 3 times a day. He may have to do all this stuff in preparation. But for your average person, trying to get 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night, trying to make sure that you stay hydrated, and going for a 10-minute walk 7 to 10 times a week doesn't sound like too much to ask.
No.
Sounds reasonable.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And that's why I think one of the reasons that people like him. He gives people things to do that are reasonable, and they don't seem like they would be that hard to get started. And the hardest part is always getting started.
Yeah, I think Andy Galpin too, who said, eat vegetables. He was like, just eat them. Just eat with each meal in a day. Just you can think about protein and think about vegetables. Just those are your 2 first thoughts, and then go from there.
Seems pretty simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, you try to, if you think about it over a long period of time, it's like that'll probably help with some success. And then you got, somebody like Rob Wolf, who I recently was talking to, and he was just, I mentioned this on another podcast, but the comment about the packaging, the packaging of your foods. He's like, your food, most of the foods that you eat just shouldn't have shouldn't say anything on it, because it should just be, meat or vegetables. Now, sometimes that might have packaging on it too, because they might have stuck something on it at the store or whatever. But you get the point. You don't want packaged processed foods is the main thing.
Yep, this is true. Well, there's only one more episode of the PowerCast for 2017.
That one might have died.
No.
Something's blinking on it.
Yeah, it is blinking on it. Okay. Oh well, we're still going on several here. I wonder what if it. I don't want to think about what happened with it. Anyway, so one more episode for 2017, and then we're taking the first week of January off, and we'll be back on the second week of January with somebody that we have looked up to for a long time and never really had the opportunity to talk to, Dr. John Berardi.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure he has a lot of new information out. I used to read a lot of the articles on T-Nation, as I'm sure that you did too. And, since that time, I'm sure some things have changed. So it's going to be great talking to him. Yep.
All righty. Let's put a bow on this one.
What's the company that he has again? What's that called?
Precision Nutrition.
Is that an advertiser of the podcast?
It is a sponsor of this podcast.
Precision Nutrition. What do they have, Jim?
Precision Nutrition is basically their certification courses in nutrition.
Teaching people to be more smarterous with their nutrition.
Exactly. And we know someone who is actually taking their next level. And I'm not sure which one it is. That's Juliet Starrett.
Oh, yeah.
Is taking the next level course right now.
That's cool.
And she swears by the information that she's gotten.
There's a lot of stuff to know. And to try to just figure it out from, quote unquote, gurus online is not a great way to know how to do it.
Not a great way. And so they are at get.pn/PowerCast. You can sign up there for a free course on low carb dieting and the role of carbs in your diet. And then they do a certain number of course releases a year of the full course.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to nutrition. There's just so many different factors. It's not always just about the food. It's about the preparation of the food, how you digest it as an individual.
Yeah.
And then if you're coaching people on nutrition, that's even harder. How do I get this person to adhere to some of the suggestions that I make? And I'm sure they have a lot of good strategies for that.
Yep. Alrighty.
I think that's it.
That sounds like it to me.
Multiply your hustle, multiply your muscle, and may all your shits be tapered. I'm at Mark Smellybell on Instagram and Twitter. And thank you guys so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel, which has finally creeped up over the 300,000 mark. I really do appreciate that. Catch you guys later.
Just in time for us to move this show off of it.
Yeah. Hey now.
Yeah, we'll give you information on that, so you'll be able to find us. Shout out to all of our sponsors: 8Man Apparel at 8manstrong.com, bodybuilding.com for all of your supplement needs. Compex USA for cutting-edge muscle stim machines. Get an additional 28% off when you use the code PowerCast on all but the lowest price model. And as has been pointed out before, it's 28% off the lowest price that they are offering. So the discount always should work. Reebok.com, home of the legacy lifting shoe, official shoe of the PowerCast. Increase your bench at howmuchyoubench.net. Get 15% off slingshots plus free shipping with the code PowerCast. Power, the only strength magazine available in both digital and print at thepowermagazine.com. Precision Nutrition, as I said, get the free course, especially for our listeners, at get.pn/PowerCast. That's get.pn/PowerCast. And Health IQ, a life insurance company with special rates for weightlifters. See if you qualify today by going to healthiq.com/PowerCast and support this show. I am at the Jim McDonald on all the social medias. Follow the show on Instagram. We are at Mark Bell's PowerCast. And we're out.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, here's the list. Stan Efferding, Charles Poliquin, Josh Bryant, Amanda Bucci, Rob and Dana Lynn Bailey, Tom Callis, Steve Gentili and Tipa Pula, Gary Vaynerchuk, Chris Bell, Brian Alsrew and Alan Thrall, Charlie Zamora, Jen Wiederstrom, Lane Norton, Misfit Athletics guys whose names are not on here, Simon Otero and Garrett Gonzalez from Masthetics, Jen Thompson, China Cho and Freddie Camacho, Kyle Kingsbury, Jason Kalipa, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kelly Starrett and Matt Vincent, CT Fletcher, Ben Smith and his brothers Alec and Dane, Mark's dad Mike Bell, Jacob Ross, Steve Johnson and Lauren Quinn, Gunnar Peterson and Ben Bruno, George Lockhart, Matt Wenning, Keith Evans, Kevin Ogar, Mike Ryan, Frank McGrath, Jordan Syatt, Dave Spitz and West Kids, Jeff Nichols, Stephanie Sanzo, Tom File, Lewis Howes, Hani Rambad, Dr. Andy Galpin, Kaylor Woolham, Brian and Carrie Shaw, Lil Smokey, Joel Jameson, Brooke Entz, Phil Stevens, JP Price, and Paul Gomez. Thank you all, each and every one of you, for being on the show.